Welcome to the Bravo Rundown, where we bring you all the, hot tea that's going on in Bravo. And we're so excited today because we have a special guest, and I'm really excited about this. This is Sax Eno, and our guest is truly a legend in the reality television world. His editing credits span from some of the most iconic unscripted shows ever made, including The Real World, Joe Millionaire, and of course, Vanderpump Rules, where he started way back in season 1. In the Bravo community, Vanderpump Rules is often called lightning in a bottle, one of those rare reality shows where everything just clicked. It's fair to say our guest played a huge role in creating that magic. From unforgettable moments like Scandoval, the scandal that completely rocked the Bravoverse, he is the person helping shape those stories in the edit bay, crafting the pacing, the emotion, the tension, and the moments that kept millions of viewers glued to their screens. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on how those iconic episodes came together. Please welcome the incredibly talented, Emmy-nominated Sax Eno.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? I'm so glad to be here. I'm honored that you guys would have me on your show. This is like such an honor. I really appreciate it. Thank you for talking to me. And that was a wonderful intro.
We're honored to have you because your resume speaks for itself. And I know that you have done a lot in this reality TV editing world. But can you tell us about your work experience and some of the projects you've worked on?
Sure. Yeah, I've worked on The Bachelor, Big Brother, MasterChef, Hell's Kitchen, Kitchen Nightmares. In the Bravo universe, I've done Real Housewives of Orange County, Real Housewives of New York, Southern Hospitality, Project Runway, and Vanderpump Rules.
I mean, that excites us so much, Sax. I mean, we are huge Bravo fans, but also Genevieve and I are like big reality fans. I mean, Real World, like you've got me so excited here.
And you said Hell's Kitchen. Gordon Ramsay is one of those people that I would geek out to meet.
He's an amazing character. I mean, he's one of the defining reality TV characters of all time.
So when we talk about video editing, where does video editing fall in the production process of a reality show? So from start, when the cameras are on, to when we have something on television.
Sure, yeah. Editing happens during post-production. So there's pre-production, production, and then post-production. And so it happens typically after the show has been shot or while production's already been going for a little bit. It depends on the show. But yeah, basically the process of editing, I think a lot of people think of editing as the process of taking things away or eliminating things or removing things. But really editing is more of a process of building things, building stories, building scenes, building episodes, building story arcs for an entire season for each character, and it's a whole process, and you kind of tackle it scene by scene.
How much footage do you get for each episode? And did Vanderpump Rules, were you getting just hours and hours and hours of footage of them? And do you have to watch it all?
Vanderpump Rules, we shoot a lot. There's a lot of footage for Vanderpump Rules, which is a good thing. It's better to have options, than sometimes you're on a show. I worked on a show one time and they made 10 episodes out of 2 weeks of footage, and it was a nightmare. But it's better to have more to work with. But typically the amount of hours of footage for a scene can be maybe 2 to 3 hours of footage per scene, and maybe there's 3 to 4 scenes per act, 6 acts per episode. Could be around 70 hours of footage for one episode, but you end up cutting so many scenes that don't make the final episode, so you end up going through a lot more footage than that. But yeah, it's a lot of footage to go through, for sure.
So you have to actively watch all of that.
Well, actually, there's a story department typically on most of these shows that helps the editors put together string outs, what's called string outs for each scene, and that's kind of a starting point for the editor. So they kind of give you a head start, and you kind of take that string out, and then you start working it and trying to make it work. And for me personally, I try to find what is the point of this scene, how is this contributing to the overall story, what are we trying to achieve with this scene, and you try to find some piece of it that is working, and you kind of trying to build around that and kind of build around that and build around that, and usually there's a point to the scene that you're trying to achieve. So Yeah, so there's a story department that you're working with. The story department on these shows are absolutely brilliant. They're amazing, and we could not do anything without them. But yeah, it's how much time you have to go through raw footage kind of depends on the budget of the show a lot of times. How much time do you have? Because the schedule, a lot of times, I'm on a show right now that it has a crazy deadline. So a lot of times, you simply don't have that much time to go through all the raw footage. You kind of have to just go with what the story department gives you, or, you just do what you can. But ideally, you would be able to go through all the raw footage for the scene that you're working on. And you find little things, that a look from one person to another that you could turn into a moment, or, stuff like that. Little things that you find in the raw footage that you use to build the scene with.
So you're given from the story department this kind of the storyline, and then you're going through the strings, like you said, to kind of support that storyline that they have.
Right. Well, we're all kind of clear about what the storylines for each cast member for the season is. We have that all kind of mapped out for the whole season, the story arc for each character. And so each episode is a step in that story for the season. So each episode has kind of like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and is trying to achieve something with that person's storyline. And each episode has 6 acts, and each act has several scenes that are all trying to achieve something towards that story. So it's a lot of like team effort, all working towards the same goal of like, how do we tell the best story? And we're working on it all the way till it's like pencils down till we have to hand it over and we're done. We're just constantly reworking the story, reworking it until we make it as best as we possibly can and have to hand it off.
How does a show like Big Brother work then, when it's live feeds going all the time and you've got multiple episodes a week?
Big Brother is crazy. You basically have no time, but shows like Big Brother, each scene has a card, like pool scene where so-and-so tells so-and-so that they don't trust so-and-so. That scene has a card, and then you're constantly moving those cards around. I mean, we do it digitally now, but back in the day, we used to do it with cards.
Manually.
Manually, yeah. We did it for a long time. Even when digital storyboards came around, we still did it because something about moving the cards around that just,
Yes.
Visually, you know what you're doing. But anyway, there's all these scenes that don't get into the episode, But you're constantly moving those cards around, trying to figure out where do they go, which act is this going to work in, and what story are we trying to tell? Do we need this? What are we missing? Do we have a scene like this? That type of thing. So
I always thought people who worked on Big Brother must work 24/7.
Yeah, like Love Island.
Yeah, the secret to those shows is that you have so many editors that you can distribute the work properly. Because if it was one editor trying to cut all that material, there's no way that would ever happen. So it's just about having the magnitude of editors that can tackle that much work, and you have to work really, really quickly. I mean, the turnaround is just crazy, but you are doing the full process in a short amount of time. You're building scenes, getting notes, restructuring, all that just like in a day or something like that. But, the field producers are really important on those shows too. They're doing a lot of the work out there in the field, figuring out as things are happening, okay, this is going to be Act 1, this is going to be Act 3, this is the big moment here. You really are always trying to find what are the biggest moments and how do we build to those moments.
How many editors typically work on a show? Because you said Big Brother usually has a lot more. And then how do you guys divide and conquer all of that editing?
Yeah, so it really depends on the show. There's some shows that have just a few editors. There's some shows that are one editor per episode. Most shows have multiple editors per episode, and so you're kind of moving around and helping an editor out with their episode and then moving back to your episode, and it's kind of like constantly moving the pieces around and moving the people around, and it can be hard sometimes to take ownership over what you're doing. Editing is very much like an artistic expression.
We're just, because it's so interesting to actually find out kind of how this all happens, because for us, we're just watching and we're like, this is amazing, and we don't even we don't know that there's that many people behind everything, like making everything work. Do you ever get like freedom to kind of create storyline, or is it usually though like everyone else is kind of telling you or sending you, this is what we're doing?
Well, especially on shows where you're the only editor on that episode, you have a lot of creative freedom, and there can be something that's not quite working, and sometimes you got to make something out of nothing, and sometimes you got to make something work, and you got to pull a miracle, and there's definitely times where that's happened. But sometimes you're like, oh, you know what, this other thing I think could work. I think this could be really great. I have this great scene with Jax and Brittany, and if we could set this up earlier, I think this could be a great scene. So you do have creative freedom in those types of situations. I feel like one of the most creative experiences I had was on a show called Trading Spouses, which is where the God Warrior came from. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the God Warrior.
I give it up to God. I'm a God warrior, and I don't want someone with hated anything in beliefs doing anything with my family. Get out! Get out. I want these crew members leaving. Get these ear sets off with me. I've had enough. Gargoyles, psychics, everything's ungodly, dark-sided.
I'm glad you're home.
Get the hell out of my house. In Jesus' name, I pray.
It was one of the most fun creative experiences I've had in terms of feeling like I had the most input on the story, the editing, and the music. And it was a group effort. It was a total group effort. We had an amazing team of producers and editors, but it was a really fun time. So there are those experiences. I've also worked in development where I got to work kind of more on the early part of the process, the inception of the idea, because usually editors come in at the end of the process. Mm-hmm. But getting to work in development and see things from the very beginning, and then getting to work on the whole process all the way to the end, which was really fun. We did a show with Ricky Gervais. We did a show with Ryan Reynolds, and being able to work on that process from beginning to end, it was very special because it was unique. For an editor.
Yeah.
Where do confessionals fit in with everything? Because confessionals are done after a lot of filming is done. So how does that affect the video editor?
Yeah, so actually what you're calling confessionals, I think we call interviews, but that's the term. Oh, okay. But I think that's the term that is used by everybody is confessionals, But I think, if I'm not mistaken, that term comes from the real world. I really think that's where that comes from, because on the real world, there's a room in the house where there was a camera set up, and they could go into this room and they could just hit record, say whatever they wanted, and then we would use those bites in the episodes. And that was called a confessional. And that was different than the sit-down interviews that we would do with all the cast once a week that was in a separate space, and we would call those interviews. And so on reality shows, a lot of times we do sit-down interviews, and I think people call that a confessional, but we call it interviews. But basically, it's an insight into the person's mind at the moment of the scene that we're in. So they're really important. They shape the story. It's really important to get inside a person's brain and know what they were thinking at a particular moment. But it's a kind of an interesting look at the human brain and how it works, because there are some people who are very clear about the facts of an event and know exactly what happened. And then there are a lot of people, I would say most people, who tend to remember things a little differently than they happened. I mean, I'd say most people, I'd say if you asked anybody about a lunch date they had a month ago, and if I asked you about all the details of that lunch date, you might, you guys wouldn't, you're very sharp, so you guys are different, but well, I think a lot of people would have a problem recalling all the details of that event, and it's just, things get mixed up in our brains, so if too much time goes by, it's hard to get the person back in that moment, so, it's always tricky trying to get those interviews right.
While we're at this point, then, can you say which real world shows you worked on?
Yeah, I got my first editing credit on Real World Las Vegas.
I asked Genevieve, did Sax work on Vegas? The best real world season. The best.
This is a true story.
True story of 7 strangers
picked to live in a casino,
work together and have their lives taped
to find out what happens
when people stop being polite
and start getting real.
The real world Las Vegas!
That season of Real World goes down in reality TV history. One of the most amazing shows I've ever watched.
Oh my God, it was so exciting for me because it was my first editing credit. So Yeah, I had a blast working on that. That was great. I got that job because I was in college going to Chapman University and majoring in film production, and I knew I wanted to do reality TV when one of the producers from Real World came to do Q&A, and he was like, you know, in scripted, you write the script and then you go shoot the script. In reality TV, we shoot the footage and then we write the script after the fact. And that like just something clicked at me, and I'm like, oh my God. Because at that point I was focused on editing and I wanted to be an editor. And so when he said that, I'm like, that's what I want to do. And so I followed him out to the parking lot and I said, hey, I want to be an editor. Is there anyone who can give me a job? And he's like, no, I can't give you a job, but I can give you an internship. And so he gave me an internship, and that internship led to a job out of college, and that's how I got on The Real World.
So after you complete an edit, who reviews the work and provides feedback and kind of requests changes from what you've done?
For those people who don't know, reality shows have a lot of producers. If you look at the credits, there's story producers, there are supervising producers, there are co-executive producers, there are executive producers, and then you have notes kind of coming in from the network. And so you have a lot of people giving a lot of input, and your job as the editor is kind of to try to make everybody happy. And that's kind of like a skill to have, is to try to make everyone happy. And it's hard to do, but basically for the most part, most people's notes are coming from a place of like actually recognizing a problem. And if you can identify what that problem is, then you can pretty much sort your way through it, you know, solving that problem and being able to address everyone's notes.
But you're literally working until the sometimes till the very, like that last little due date. That's crazy. That's so intense.
Yeah, I've worked on shows where we finished it the day that it aired.
We've wondered that with like one of the Bravo shows we've watched this year, Summer House, that had a scandal, that if things were getting cut up into the final, and we didn't know that could actually happen.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, but I can't speak to Summer House specifically. I don't know about that, but yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, that seems difficult. Well, since we were talking about Vanderpump Rules, that's the show that in the Bravoverse, like, everyone loves that show. People are like, what show should I watch first? We're all like, Vanderpump Rules. You know, like, it's one of those shows where people, like, I have another friend who just texted me the other day. She's like, I miss Vanderpump Rules. I think I'm just going to watch it again from the beginning, because that's how we feel about that show.
Wow. Well, that's a big commitment, starting from the beginning.
But, you know,
it's a good one.
It's so nostalgic, too.
It is.
And, like, you know, I was a waitress at a restaurant watching Vanderpump Rules from the beginning. I felt like I was like, this show could be about me, and I'm the Stassi, but like,
Wow.
not with those iconic lines, but I was like the, you know, the lead server or whatever, and like, yeah, I was just like, I loved it so much from the beginning to the end. Like, it's just been just a fabulous watch.
Wow.
So good. And for me, it's like I grew up in Texas, like anything Hollywood, like the thought of having a life where you're trying to be successful. I mean, to me, like that was nothing I'd even seen, you know? So to watch that, like you just get so connected to them, like, oh my gosh, and living that life. It's just, that's why I watch all reality TV, because it's all these shows, it's that aspirational component of it.
Yeah, it's a nice story to watch, you know, especially with these particular people. But I love that you guys watched the show. That's so awesome.
Can you tell us how your time was on that show and when you knew that it was something special?
I love Vanderpump Rules. I do think that it's special. I feel like I'm totally biased, but I just think that, you know, something about the characters and the relationships that changed over time. One of my favorite things, and this, a lot of shows do this, but you know, flashing back to stuff that happened on season 4, and you know, just constantly flashing back and reminding people of what these people have been through. There's something really powerful about that, and I really enjoyed all the aspects of the show. You know, the humor of the show, the aspirational storylines of, you know, these people really wanted to make it, you know, and there was humor there, but it was also like, you were kind of rooting for him sometimes, and you know, the Lisa of it all, of course. There was a lot of like fun, unique, original aspects to the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, you edited Scandoval, which is, you know, kind of like peak reality TV. Is there any advice you give to other editors who have to edit through a similar scandal like the Summer House producers?
Yeah, I mean, my instincts, the way that I felt when I was editing that, is that you just have to like protect the material because it's so strong. You have to make sure that it doesn't get infiltrated with outside noise. And so I guess my instinct is, like, don't let the outside world affect how you're telling the story. But all they can do is just be really, really truthful to the story and just try to tell it in the most interesting way possible.
For sure. I mean, a lot of these shows, it seems like they air 6 months after they're filmed, and then we're finding out a lot of stuff about these people on social media, and then when it airs, sometimes we're like, yeah, we already know that, or like, that doesn't seem, like it's...
Yeah.
Is that something difficult that you guys find dealing with?
Yeah, sometimes you are influenced by what the cast members are saying outside of the show. They're not... There was a time where they weren't allowed to say anything, but those days have gone. So yeah, it's like when we're not filming, or sometimes even when we are filming, there's a whole active narrative going on that's outside the world of the show that you have to like take into account. So it can be really hard as an editor. Like you said, like you can work so hard on this episode and get the story right and everything's great, and then someone will go on social media and post something and it just screws everything up, and then you still got to air the episode, but the episode is kind of out of step with whatever that information was. So yeah, it gets kind of messed up sometimes.
That Scandoval episode, and I mean that whole season, but that episode is like cinematic. Like that scene between Tom and Ariana where he's like, can I get you anything? And she's like, for you to die.
Do you want anything?
For you to die.
That, like, it's one of those episodes where it's so powerful and it's so raw. And I mean, I'm not surprised that you were nominated for an Emmy for Vanderpump Rules for editing. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, first just doing that scene, it was like I felt like my whole career had been building up to cutting that one scene, because, I think if that scene had felt edited or over, like playing into the emotion we did it a lot without music, and without interview bites, which is very unusual for the show. And we just tried to like capture the emotion of the footage in the edit,
I regret every moment that I stood up for you, defended you, supported you. You're worth nothing. And I want you to feel that deep in your soul. I want you to hear those words coming from the mouth of the woman that stood by you and loved you.
It was a crazy scene and really powerful. And so, yeah, to get nominated was just so exciting, and going to the Emmys. And I went with the girl that used to babysit me when I was a kid. Although she told me that recently that she never got paid, so I think I owe her money. My parents never paid her or anything. But we just had the best night, and we didn't win, but it was truly one of those things where I was like just happy to be at the party, So that was really fun. A lot of like, we did a lot of events for the Emmys, and it was so much fun the whole time, just riding the wave. And the work of my fellow editors is what got us there, especially Jesse Friedman, who cut this amazing like rewind sequence with Lala that I think really is what got us that nomination. So yeah, again, just happy to be along for the ride.
So from your time of working in reality TV, how would you say it has changed from back with Big Brother, Real World to now?
I think over time, over like the last 20 years, like you said, since, the early days of Real World, and there were a lot of mean-spirited kind of prank shows in the beginning. Like I worked on the Joe Millionaire show, which was kind of lying to all these women and saying that this guy was a millionaire when he wasn't.
Fox tonight on Joe Millionaire. The stakes go up for the final 4 women, and they'll do anything to get Joe's attention.
Wow.
But how far will they go to win the man they think is rich?
I'll make this easy.
I'm feeling guilty. Now I can't go back.
Joe Millionaire, the reality sensation continues next on Fox.
Shows like that were kind of, maybe a little mean-spirited. I feel like we actually have gotten less exploitive, as hard as that is to believe. I think it's a little less exploitive these days, and I think what people are really connected to are the more truthful, honest stories. I know that seems crazy. I think there's a lot of people who say that reality TV is not real, but I think that the thing that people do connect to is real people having a real emotion on screen, you know, and that's what we're looking for is you know, what are those real moments and how do we build to those moments? But you know, you're always going to have a cast member that's like trying to create their own storyline or trying to, you know, we really try to navigate around that kind of stuff as much as we can. Sometimes it's impossible, but I think things are going in a better direction in terms of looking for the true story.
No, I think you're right, because even as a viewer, and we talk about this on the podcast, we're looking for authenticity, someone who's organic. We've been watching reality TV for so long, like we can tell you're just trying to move storyline, and it's not fun to watch.
Right. Yeah, you're looking for authenticity, something that you connect to. Yeah.
Do you watch reality TV, and what do you watch if you do?
I do. I love reality TV. I watch RuPaul's Drag Race. I watch Survivor. I watch The Traitors. I watch 90 Day Fiancé. I don't want to drop names. I hate to drop names, but I was at a party. I was at a party once with Lady Gaga, and we literally spent the entire time talking about 90 Day Fiancé, and specifically before the 90 days. We were both just gushing over it. It's such a fun show. But yeah, but The Traitors, like every version of that show, the Irish show that came out like a few months ago was great. And yeah, that show just delivers. And this most recent version of Survivor was great. I know you guys are Bravo girls.
Bravo. We watched Bravo, the Peacock Traitors, though. We are hooked to that.
Yeah, we love Traitors, and I watch Love Island. It's like a guilty pleasure. You know, it's something to like relax to at night, because I work in the news. I'm a meteorologist, and so like I only watch reality. I can't do any scripted. I don't want any drama or like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I want nothing but like fluff and like housewives and comedy, and that's it.
That's great.
And that's all I watch. I read a lot of books, and I just watch Bravo, or I'll watch reruns of old episodes of Bravo.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone who wants to get into video editing, or maybe just the behind the scenes part of reality TV?
Yeah, I think this is a really tough time to try to get into it, but I think with just editing in general, I would recommend to anybody to try editing. Just use CapCut on your phone and edit videos of your dog or something like that. It's a really rewarding process, and you might find that you enjoy it. It's a fun thing to do, and you might find you have skills you didn't know you had. Put some music in there and just practice. For anyone who seriously wants to be an editor, I would just practice on CapCut, and you know, practice posting stuff. And if you're already on a show that has editors on it, I would go up to those editors and offer to edit stuff for them and get some feedback from them. That feedback is going to be really valuable. That's what I did when I first started out, is I was just like going up to editors saying, hey, I want to be an editor. Can I cut stuff from you? Can I take stuff off your plate? And can you give me feedback on it? And that's what I did. And I did that enough till finally they gave me my own episode. And you got to show that desire to be an editor. You got to tell people that's what you want, and you got to hustle, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You had said before that you use music a lot. Would that help you drive story? Do you think that's like a big element of these shows?
Yes, yeah. So I don't know if people don't know this, but editors put in all the music. So all the music that's in the reality show is put in by the editors. So yeah, music is story. So if you have a story problem, sometimes music can fix that. And sometimes you have two people in a scene with two different agendas, and music can kind of tell that story too. But yeah, music is everything, and different editors work with music in different ways. I like getting to use all the different versions of the song, the one without guitars, the one with just the pads for this part of the scene where they're speaking quietly, and then when the panic attack hits, we go up to the full mix with the drums and the guitars and, you know, everything. And you really piece almost like a Frankenstein monster of all the different versions of a cue to fit what's happening in the scene, all these different changes that are happening in the scene, and like coming down because Lisa's saying something very sensitive, and just going to just the pads and the strings, you know, stuff like that. I think music's really important. I think it's not just music, but there are a lot of little things that we do. I think when something works really well, it's a lot of little things done right. And I think if you picked any one of those little things and looked at it, you could say, well, that doesn't matter. People won't notice that. But it's the culmination of all those little things that create a compelling piece. And so that's why I really feel like it's important to take care of all those little things and make sure every little thing is as good as it can be. And you only got so much time, but you got to make it as good as you can make it.
I always notice when the music, I'm like,
Yes.
something, I was like, something's about to go down. I can tell by the music. Or like, also my boyfriend and I always notice the music on Below Deck. We're like, we're like, this song, we know, like, this is the fun part now. This is the part that something's going to happen. Like, you can tell, it's really cool to watch.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that you noticed that. I mean, a lot of people, they don't notice it, but they're still affected by it,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So,
yes, because I've watched like in argument scenes, or I'll be like, why am I feeling anxious? And I start listening. It's like, oh, that music. Yes, they're arguing, but that's not what's got me anxious. Oh, that music has got me into what's going on in this scene.
Yeah. Well,
are you limited on like early days of Bravo on the Housewives? We would hear the same songs. It was like, oh, it's the final scene. I can tell by the music. I'm assuming. I mean, I can tell that's changed since beginning days.
Yes. Well, I personally feel like the use of musical themes is like really important. And if you have a cue for every time Jax gets stuck in a lie, that familiar cue is like good to hear as a viewer. If you use the cues in the right way and it's not just repetitive using the same tracks, if you're using it in a strategic way so that a theme happens at a certain time when this type of thing is happening, I think it's really effective. I like to do that a lot. A lot of editors don't ever repeat the same cue ever. It depends on the show. And sometimes they come in and say, we want all new music and we don't want to hear anything from an old season. And that's just kind of like a blanket note that they give that we just want it to feel fresh, which I understand. But there's ways to make it feel fresh and still remind people of what the show is, So it depends on the show and how many seasons it's been on and whether they allow you to do themes, but that allows you to work with a composer, which is really fun, calling up a composer and saying, hey, I need something like this. Can you give me something like this, like now? Or, in a day or something like that. Can it be like this? Or sometimes I'll Frankenstein a bunch of different cues together and I say, can you give me something like this? Can you create something like this? Wow. So, yeah, I think music is key.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, that's, I want to know, what is your dream job in editing right now or in the future?
I think my dream job would be like if someone came to me with like 5 months of footage and said, here, can you make a story out of this? That would be a challenge and it would be exciting and I would love to do that. I mean, I would love it if it was great footage,
Yeah.
And it's not too different from how things are on some shows now. But yeah, sometimes you're trying to make something out of nothing and that's not a good position to be in. But sometimes you pull a miracle and people respond to it and you're like, wow, this is great. But I really do like that creative freedom and that the ability to find a story and then find the best way to tell that story. And the freedom comes from the magnitude of the footage, You have more options with how much footage you have to work with. So that would be kind of a dream.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Because you're really good at finding the correct thing.
You are.
Say. We love reality TV so much, and that's kind of like our hobby and our guilty pleasure and how we have fun. But what do you do when you're not working? What do you do for fun?
I do collect autographs. I like to get like a poster from a movie that I love, like Back to the Future, and then try to find all the cast members from that movie and try to get them all to sign that
Nice.
poster. And I don't sell anything or anything like that. I just collect things. But yeah, that's kind of one of my favorite pastimes. You can see me with Tom Cruise on my Instagram.
I watched some of your clips. I just watched your Larry David clip the other day, and it was so good that I even showed I was like, look at this, it's so funny. Like, it was so good because you had to keep, thinking, okay, what's next to make sure to get his autograph. How long have you been doing this? How long have you been been a grapher? Isn't that what you guys call like your community?
Yeah, and graphers get a bad name. People think of graphers, they think of like paparazzi or something like that, and that is not.
No.
It's not what we are. We're just collectors that really care about these movies, and I've been doing it for about 9 or 10 years.
Who's like the prize, or there are a couple of like prize signatures you've gotten? Who are they?
I got Madonna. That was a big one. Tom Cruise was a big one. You know, I'm obsessed with Back to the Future, so getting those people was really fun. Got the Goonies cast, Breakfast Club. Those are really hard, those cast pieces, where you're trying to get everybody on one piece. It's extremely time consuming. It's a lot of rejection, but you know, it's really fulfilling when you finally get the whole thing signed. So
yeah, absolutely.
The Breakfast Club, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a classic.
That's a good one.
We've enjoyed having you here so much today, Sax. Where can people find you?
You can find me SAXENO on Instagram.
Well,
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys so much.
We
You guys are
learned
awesome.
so much, like literally, and you like just the things that you said. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I understand so much more than I understood before, and you're just amazing. Like I can't wait to watch more of your shows.
I know.
You guys were seriously so awesome. You had excellent questions. And I love your podcast, and I think you guys are so good together. I love watching the rapport between you guys, and it was an honor to come on your show. I'm just honored that you would want me on your show. That's so nice.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Nice.
Thank you, Sax. That was so good.